It's a pleasure to be here. I started the morning with a visit to a health camp, which was organized on the birth anniversary of, or in honor of Swami Vivekananda. And now I'm here at an event which commemorates the vision and idealism and inspiration of another great Indian, Dr. Abdul Kalam. And both of them really stressed on one central feature, which was the need for India to be confident of our own strengths, of our own future, and to turn that confidence into constructive action that would provide opportunities and achieve the dreams of every Indian. So on this occasion, on the larger theme of Advantage India, of the theme of this conference, which is technologically inspired India, etc., I was thinking about what I should talk about which would connect with the different themes that are going to be explored today. And I thought that one of the most fundamental features of India is our education system. And when you think about our ability to build a strong education system, to turn our people into creative researchers, etc., that this is an issue that's really a place where we've fallen substantially short. And this is something that you've seen in recent times. You've seen Narayan Murthy making statements about how we have fallen behind and we're not really accomplishing much on the research front. We have numerous people saying, we will do something and we will make a difference, etc., or talking about the number of Indians who are in NASA rather than who are here, nurtured and making an impact within the Indian context. Or recently, our HRD minister, Smriti Irani, made the statement that, oh no, we do a lot more research, it's just that we do this in the vernacular language, and this doesn't count in the larger scheme of things. I would actually disagree with her. I think the real impactful research is substantially done in English, and we are woefully inadequate if you look at any global measure of research productivity, be it patent production, be it scientific citations, or anything like that. Now, before I came back to India in the year 2000 and joined the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, I was a PhD student and then a postdoc and then a professor in the United States. And I thought that I have experienced a lot of a very, very different education and research system, and that the lessons of how they have created an ecosystem that and allows research to flourish, allows creativity to flourish, that those lessons are something that would be really useful to us as we think about an empowered India, an India that's going to really have an impact on the global technology and other landscapes. So today my theme is really focused on my observations of what the US has done, my whole experience of having worked within that system itself, and what lessons and insights we might be able to apply in the Indian context. Now, all of us are products of the Indian context, and especially those of us who are alumni of the Indian institutes of this or that, whether it is science or technology or management, are really the cream of the crop. We are people who have, in this vast land of billions, we are the ones who've managed to really get to the cream of the cream in some sense. But when you think about the larger landscape and what happened to our country over the last few decades, what we tried to do and what we succeeded in and what we didn't, there are so many questions that arise. I'll just diagnose one or two of the leading problems that we created for ourselves. We of course had this real challenge of a lack of literacy. We had millions and millions of people without literacy even, forget education of any concrete sort. We had, so at the time of independence, we really had to come up with some hard decisions. Do we go for mass education to provide opportunities for millions and millions of people to get access to basic degrees, basic primary education, and then higher education? Or do we just focus on just the elite segments? And the ultimate decision that we took was we'll try and do a bit of everything. We tried to pump in a certain amount of resources into primary education. We tried to strengthen the university system that existed at that time. But we also said that we must compete on a global stage with the best and the brightest. And on that front, we decided to focus on creating elite institutions as well. And when we chose to do that, we went to other countries and said, please partner with us. So for example, the Indian Institutes of Technology have been set up. You know, we were a non-aligned country, and we were truly quite opportunistic in being non-aligned when it came to these things. If America wanted to help us, we said, sure. Germany, yes, of course. Russia, yes, you're welcome. So basically, we reached out and partnered with each and every one of them and established IITs in partnership with these institutions. We brought in Harvard to tell us how we could set up Indian Institutes of Management, right? And so in that sense, we had far-thinking leaders. But what we were able to create was a very, very small set of institutions which still made a huge impact, which created the cadre that has really put India on the global landscape when it comes to academia, when it comes to being CEOs of top companies worldwide. But what we did in the process was that we isolated these institutions, these islands of excellence, from the larger universities. So if you want to create a top technology school, we would make it a standalone institution. A top management institution would be standalone as well. Scientific research, if you go to Bangalore, you'll see the National Center for Biological Sciences. Again, a very, very outstanding institution. Or NIMHANS, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences. Each one standalone on its own, focused on its own discipline, rather than part of a larger university where these pockets of excellence would serve as inspirations to everybody else, right? Now, if you contrast this to, say, my alma mater, my alma mater starts here, St. Joseph's Boys High School and St. Joseph's College in Bangalore, but later on, my PhD is from the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania. We know Wharton, but it's not a standalone business school. It is just one more division of a much larger institution, which is the University of Pennsylvania, established in 1740 by Benjamin Franklin. Right? So these are part of the Ivy League and all that sort of thing. But if you cross the road and get into the medical side of the same campus, you have Nobel laureates, you have people who are doing outstanding research. And Wharton, while it has a global reputation, etc., on campus, you're just one more good set of one more institution in a place where excellence is the norm. Right? Like that, across disciplines, you have everyone under the same large university umbrella. And for whatever reason, we chose to go a different path. And as a result, we separated excellence from education for the masses, which we made the mandate of our major universities. And over time, that university system, the syllabi that they came up with, the effort to try and reach out to the masses, ended up creating sort of a lowest common denominator approach. We said, let's provide, a basic college degree. And so the syllabus, the exams, etc., were designed mostly to give people that basic qualification that would then allow them to become, employees in civil services, in banks, in numerous other sections, right? So it was more a qualification rather than the pursuit of knowledge and, a larger set of skills and understanding that would emerge from the basic education system itself. So what this did is that it turned off a lot of people, right? So people like me, for example, when we went to college, the lessons would be taught, again for the lowest common denominator, and so it got boring very, very quickly. And so we would spend more time in the college canteen, in cultural events, in attending sports events, morning shows, various other kinds of things. And there was a big disconnect between what happened in the classroom and what happened in the examination, right? So the last 2 months of the year, we would basically say, okay, exams are coming up, let's look at the last 10 years' papers and come up with some beautiful answers to all these questions. And lo and behold, graduate with a gold medal, or something like that, which is what I ended up doing. And along with that, I was a student union leader, and so basically I had a very good time in college, but attendance was very, very minimal. And unfortunately, in the process, even the teachers would not really be as motivated, because a lot of the good students would not be even attending class, right? Where they could engage with the subject, challenge them, explore different aspects, etc. And this is, of course, 30 odd years ago, before, around the time Mr. Janpal Singh was born. Okay, and, this is a while ago. Anyway, so we did all those sorts of things. And when we take a step back and look at the larger landscape, these pockets of excellence, right? We are very, very proud of the fact that, 3 lakh people take the IIM entrance exam, the CAT, and there are only 3,000 seats available or something. So everyone is 1 in 100, that kind of extraordinary competition. And, and people will say, it's easier to get into MIT than to get into IIT or something like that. Basically whatever, whether that's true or not is a different matter. But the point is, while this is a very competitive situation, the other side of looking at it is a huge demand-supply mismatch, right? There are large numbers of people who want a quality business education, who want to get a good MBA, but there are very, very few places, very few seats available where you can get that. And here we are talking about, in purchasing power parity terms, we are already the 4th largest economy in the world, right? Okay, so we need top quality business graduates to fuel our economic revolutions. And where are they going to come from, right? And how many of them are actually staying here and how many of them have departed to other shores? India is also one of the biggest exporters, not just of students, but of, scientists and, doctors, etc., to the rest of the world. So that brain drain is hardly over. It's changed in its ramifications today, but it's still a very continuing process. So when you look at this, when you take a step back and say, well, we've done some things, we've managed to play a part in the global knowledge economy, etc. But when it comes to research, when it comes to creativity, originality, etc., we may not be doing that much. Why? Can we learn something from an ecosystem that has managed to deliver on those fronts? So that's what I wanted to just take you through, a little bit of an exploration of what I've seen in the United States. See, in the United States, the emphasis on education is, the way they approach it is quite different. School education until the pre-university level is free, and it's provided at the local community. And it's funded by taxes that are paid, local property taxes, by the local community itself. So this creates a certain inequality. The wealthier communities have better schools and better facilities. But over time, you do have some kind of a leveling off, and there's been an effort at busing kids from poorer neighborhoods to richer ones, etc., and attempts to level the playing field. But until the 12th grade, education is free and usually of good quality. Then college is not seen as an automatic next step. It's not seen as a right. It's, in India, we think of college as just the next step in where we go. In fact, we think of, let's get a bachelor's, let's get a master's, let's get a PhD, as if these are, steps on a ladder, rather than, educational initiatives which are focused on for different purposes, which have a different agenda, ultimately, for why you would get one of those degrees. Anyway, so once you finish your high school, many, many people choose not even to go to college. College is very expensive. And as a result, people do essentially say, do I need to go, or will I be much happier as a plumber, right? The interesting thing is, if you choose to be a plumber or an electrician or a tradesperson of some sort, you can still lead a very good life. These are not low-paid jobs, nor are they low-dignity, low-status jobs. Like in India, we tend to look down on different professions, etc. Well, that's not the case in the rest of the world, or in some parts of the world anyway. So you can go and get into a vocational institution if you choose to. You could go instead to a community college where over 2 years you would get what's called an associate's degree and explore various subjects and then figure out whether you want to pursue one in more depth. And, or you could go to college, which is an expensive investment, but there are loans and various other setups that will enable you to cope with the huge financial outlay. But in college also, the first year you get a chance to take a variety of courses, including in the humanities, in liberal arts, etc., not just a technology course or something of that sort. And in the process, you also get a chance to explore whether one field excites you, whether one set of teachers and their contribution excites you, and you get a little more time to explore and learn before you make the decision on which path to take. In India, on the other hand, as we know, we follow the herd, right? Basically, I must tell you, when I chose to do a BA, after doing pre-university science and getting some 90%, things like that in the sciences, I've always wanted to be in politics, and I wanted to study economics and public policy. And therefore, I said, I'm going to go down this path. And my parents were supportive enough to say, okay, go ahead and do what you want. But one man came up to me when I just finished my pre-university and was joining my BA, and he warned me. He said, nobody will give a bride to you. Because he said, if you're not a doctor or an engineer, you're doomed, was his basic prescription. It didn't turn out to be the case. I've been married for 20 odd years. But anyway, the point is that, what shall we say, that mentality is still very much here, which is that you have to do engineering or medicine, otherwise there's not much scope. Of course, commerce is now an option. And a large number of people, the herd takes you from engineering to the world of the MBA. IIM Bangalore is some 90+% engineers. So, but the basic point is, most people haven't discovered what their talents are, what they're passionate about, because we don't even create that platform or opportunity for them, and we just force them at a very, very young age. US is not like that. It gives you opportunities to start and restart and position yourself in different directions at different points in time. So that's one of the key features that they have. And when we think about US institutions, we can name the top 10, 20, but actually if you look at the top 100 universities, they all are very good at quality education. Some of them, depending on the region they're from, will be very good in one or two fields, which are special to their local location, etc. Anyway, so they've done an amazing job. So how did they do it, and what is the magic there? That's really what I wanted to discuss. And then at the end we can think about, can we learn some lessons from this and turn that into our own advantage in the Indian context? So one part has to do with the approach. How do they look at students, right? The very first thing that you see is that students are seen, like customers. These are paying customers, and we need to deliver a quality product to them, rather than just one more herd who are going to come in here, and if one student doesn't come in, there are 100 more knocking on the door, waiting to get in, right? So the attitude is, let us create a good experience in the classroom, good experience on campus, a good all-round enriching immersion. And this is not just an approach that's talked about, it's also something that's measured. So every class will have student feedback, right? And on the basis of the student feedback, teachers are evaluated and promoted and things of that sort as well. But as teachers, we value that feedback because you always pick up something or the other which you might have missed out on, right? And so that's one aspect. Another feature, of course, is that the way the program is structured, they create a 3-month summer holiday, essentially. And that structure of the year, where there is actually a significant amount of time that is kept aside for students to get an immersion in the real world, right? That is something that we often don't do enough of. We may squeeze in a month here, something like that. But right from the beginning, students have an opportunity, right from high school, as a matter of fact, to spend their summer immersed in something else. It could be working as a lifeguard or working as a waiter when you're in high school, or as you go into college, you start exploring. You go and spend time in a company, you go spend time with an NGO, you go spend time doing something abroad, whatever, right? So that period of time that is built into the structure of the program gives you the time and flexibility to go and do something of significance. And when you come out of that, with a certain understanding of how the world operates, a certain self-confidence that you can function in a professional environment, and actually it makes you professional in a very hardcore sense. You would have done something, you would have taken up responsibility, you would be accountable, and you would have to get up and go on time and deliver and all those sorts of good things, right? So those things are built into the structure of the system, and the universities typically have a whole placement and internship establishment which will reach out to companies, which will create these opportunities, get people to come and give talks throughout the year, right? So basically the whole system is geared towards enabling the student to get not just an enriching experience in the classroom, but also something that they can carry forth out into the real world as well. And this is all nurtured and pushed forward. And they also have these big study abroad programs. A lot of students come to India and other parts of the world where they, just by immersing themselves in a different culture, they're able to get a very good understanding that broaden their horizons. And in India, we could certainly do this if we wanted to do this internally. We don't have to send them abroad necessarily. Okay. Another feature, of course, is the professionalism of the faculty themselves. Now, we heard from Shujan about the barber teacher who was not present in the classroom. We don't get that sort of situation in the US. You might find teachers who are also very good at other real-world things. I'll come to that in a while. And that's actually encouraged, right, to keep one foot in the real world. For example, if you're a professor of management, it's good to engage with industry, because to consult with industry, to gain insights from whether you do a case study, whether you advise a company, you are adding to your own knowledge. My students would, really, I used to teach a course called Business, Government, and Society at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. And because I'd spent so much time in the political world, in other parts of the world, we were able to bring a set of insights to the class, to the lecture, that would not be automatically available to anybody or everybody. Now, the way the faculty system works is that you don't, in India, you get interviewed and you get hired, and at the end of it, within 2 years, you're made permanent, right? And that's it. For the rest of your life, you will wait for your seniority to improve and things like that. And it's a very different context within which you work. In the US, you have something called the tenure system, where you are hired and you're given 6-7 years before you're made permanent. And in that period, basically, you are evaluated annually, not on a continuous basis. You're given a certain amount of freedom, some broad guidelines. These are the broad courses we've got to teach. These are how we've done it in the past, but you're welcome to tinker with it and innovate, use technology, come up with other ways of making the course come alive, and you're allowed to do that. But every year we'll look at your teaching record, we'll look at your research publications, we will look at your contribution as a colleague in terms of service, and at the end of 6 years, we will take your entire dossier of what you've done, and we will evaluate it as your peers, and we'll send it to others outside and get their opinion to see whether you've made a contribution to your discipline, right? So this is the approach. But this is not just something that they will say, go ahead, go out there and do it. This is also a situation where they support you through that, right? They will give you mentors and things of that sort. But the other part is that there's a whole ecosystem that is supporting this. And that ecosystem is often missing in the Indian context. What is that ecosystem? You will have competitions, National Science Foundation and others who will say, we are giving out money for research projects. You come up with the ideas. And a team of scholars will say, these are the good ideas, and we'll fund you. Once you do that research, there will be conferences where you can present that research, get some feedback. Then there will be journals where you can publish. And based on that publication, we will see how good your contribution to the discipline is, right? So that larger system is what enables people. So you can't just do this and say, let research ho jaye, You have to basically, essentially you have to create a whole atmosphere, an ecosystem that makes it come alive. And what I discovered personally was that by the end of my 6-7 years, I got tenure and promotion before I resigned and came back here. What it does is, this whole approach makes you internalize productivity, right? So, you get so used to being creative and productive that you don't ever switch off. Tenure is a long time, 15 years ago for me, or 16 years ago. And, but I still continue to write. I still publish academic articles even as a member of parliament. And, so this sort of thing is something that just becomes ingrained in you, and you take that forward. And so basically, when you start thinking about these sorts of approaches, can you apply them here? Well, we are trying. So you see that we've picked up a few things from this whole approach. And one other thing I must mention is that is the financial side, right? A good academic salary is at least a middle or upper middle class salary in the United States at a good institution, right? In India, it's often not the case. It's not the most attractive profession from a bottom line point of view, from an economic point of view, though it has security and it's a good profession because you meet a lot of talented youngsters on an annual basis, and it has its own non-monetary rewards as well. But the fact is that many universities in America actually compete in a marketplace. They compete in the marketplace for students. They give you scholarships if they think that you're going to add value to your program. They give you high salaries and good offers if they think as a professor you're going to make a difference to the institution itself. And in doing this, if you look at who is setting up these institutions and how long they've been running, a lot of them were set up a long time ago, or they've been set up more recently, but they're set up either by trusts, philanthropists, by state governments. There are even private for-profit institutions as well. So there's a whole range of institutions, and they generate resources partly through their own contributions, partly through fees, partly through government grants, but also significantly through alumni, right? So there's a good tradition of philanthropy, of giving back to the community. Today, we're seeing many Indians do the same. Unfortunately, the Indians who are giving contributions are giving them to American universities. So you'll see Mahindra giving, or Tata's giving 100 crores or $100 million to Ivy League institutions. Most recently, a couple, Indra Nui's sister and her husband, Tandon's, they're called Chandrika and something Tandon, gave $100 million to New York University, things like that. Well, a few such donations back to the home country, we could set up a whole new set of institutions here very easily. Anyway, now, when you think about this competition, it allows faculty to be rewarded and for excellence to be recognized, right? And there are other ways in which they also create opportunities for faculty to earn more. And in some schools here, we have the opportunity to consult. But in science fields, a lot of scientists are also encouraged to patent their work and to profit from those patents. Some amount you share with the university, some amount goes to you and your team, and that sort of thing happens quite often. So in India, we are in this fix. We want education and money not to mix with one another. We want to keep Lakshmi and Saraswati far away from one another. Okay, and there's no reason really for that to be the case. We should be able to worship all our goddesses in the same way, and with the right healthy balance, I suppose. And so again, we don't want profiteering. We don't want extraction of money from poor students or something like that. But there's no reason why academia should not be made certainly a well-paid profession that would attract more youngsters towards it. It has many other features, autonomy, and as I mentioned, non-pecuniary benefits as well. Anyway, so when these systems are out there and universities are competing with one another, how are they ranked? There are numerous ranking entities outside. There are accreditation organizations which come and say, are you running this place in the right manner? And all those things create an ecosystem where there is a check and balance. There is an appreciation for those who are doing well, and there is, if you don't do well enough, you will be downgraded as well, right? So there's a lot of competition, and that keeps everything reasonably well in check. Now, here, we've tried to figure out some of these features. And if you look at the Indian approach, it has been very rule-bound. So the UGC will say, or somebody, any institution any regulatory institution will say, we'll focus on inputs. If you want to set up a college, you need to have 20,000 square feet of classroom space. You need to have so many books in the library. That's an interesting thing. In today's digital era, the books in the library, there are requirements for that across most of these regulatory bodies. You need to have so many acres of land for playgrounds, right? Some of these don't work in an expensive city real estate context. So there are counterproductive rules and regulations out there. And so we focus so much on these inputs, we're not thinking about what's the real output that's coming out from these kinds of institutions. So then somebody else picked up these ideas and said, okay, let's create requirements for conferences and publications. So now every college will host an international conference, will publish its own journal, etc. I mean, it's okay. It's a start. I mean, things will change over time. But today, our approach is still to cut and paste. To not do, we have to publish an article, let's do something quickly, let's figure out how we cut and paste and produce a report. That approach has really got to change. And that's a change in the larger Indian mindset. We are focused on cracking the exam. We are focused on, getting something, ticking off a box rather than mastering that knowledge. And as a result, there's a huge contrast in the way we approach studies and the way, say, the American system does. There, from childhood, you're encouraged to explore, do something original, and do projects and things like that. Here, we're encouraged to monk, right? And that's pretty much it. And I mean, I experienced this myself. When I went to Wharton and had to write my first research paper, it came back with the comments from the teacher. It said, the professor had written, this is very well written and organized, but where's your opinion? And I told the teacher, nobody has asked me for my opinion before. Because the whole system was geared towards how well organized, how well written your answers were, right? So nobody ever created that opportunity to even think originally or critically. And so that's what we've got to move towards. And why I'm mentioning many of these things is because these don't cost money. If you want to transform the Indian educational landscape, to change the way we produce research and things like that, we don't have to invest millions of rupees into it. We just have to start tinkering and making radical changes in the way we approach knowledge, in what we encourage, in what we allow our youngsters to immerse themselves in, how we incentivize professors, how we nurture the journals and the conferences and the larger ecosystem. So that's where we have a lot more work ahead of us, and I think we'll get there. The other thing is, we have many times when I give talks like this in colleges which are not very well endowed, financially or otherwise, they will all have this attitude of, well, in IIM that works, but what can we do? We're a poor college. And I tell them, look, today you have the internet, you have the computer, and therefore you are on the same level as anyone else, because you have access to the knowledge that's out there on the internet available to the world. And today, when we talk about technological enablement, when we talk about the fact that MIT's open courseware means that everything that MIT does is available for us to access, that there are now massively open online courses, these MOOCs, where you can sit here and take courses with the best professors in the world, right? There is no argument that that we can't access knowledge, that we are a poor institution. All you need is one computer and one good internet connection. Along with that, we need to think creatively, and we need to think with self-confidence. We need to think about our own ecosystems, right? So if you say, where can I get a good guest lecturer to come and give a speech? Well, I would once say, you should turn to, what is the name of our host here today? Make my guest, is it? No. Invite my guest, right? So here's an example of someone who will enable you to reach out to good speakers and people of that sort. But to give them competition in every college, in every district headquarter, you can just turn to the people, the companies in the neighborhood, to the IAS officer, to the lawyer, to the local doctor, and say, come and talk to us about your life and about your profession. It's not as if people with talent and the ability to communicate what they do are not available wherever you are. They're there. You just have to look, and you have to say, and give them the right instructions to engage with your students. So that's the sort of thing. And so my larger argument is that, we have not created the right ecosystems to nurture research and originality and productivity of this sort. The same person with a PhD, when he's sitting in some traditional university, will not produce any research over the course of 30 years. But if you make them go to Whitefield and join the Jack Welch Center, which GE has set up here, within a year they'll be publishing patents and things of that sort. Right? Okay, so it's not that the brains aren't there. It's a question of how do you tap those brains? How do you incentivize people to do something original and impactful? So that's the real larger story. And so we are really working on all these doors, on opening all these doors. And as I think more along these lines, as I think, I see so many startups and businesses and things like that, when I think about these sorts of issues, I think about Advantage India in a very different way. Let me turn to one word. What is the Indian word for university? Vishwavidyalaya, right? Okay, the education hub of the world, right? Okay, today we're just the education hub of our neighborhoods of India, if at all, right? But the real ambition should be to be an education hub of the world. And if you actually think about it, right, we can provide really world-class teaching in the English language. We can provide opportunities for people to immerse themselves in a transforming economy, in multiple cultures, in a multilingual environment, where the challenges of dealing with real-world problems are so much more meaningful than just doing something, than tinkering with something which is a rich world's problem. So there's so much that can be done here, right? We haven't opened our doors. We haven't opened our university doors really to foreign faculty or to foreign students, or our country's doors to foreign universities to compete with us, right? If we were to, right? And if we were to say, okay, let us compete for the best students in the world, and let's create an institution that will compete with the Harvards and the Oxfords, I think we can give them a run for their money, right? My bachelor's, my BA cost me probably $100, or I don't know, whatever it was, a few thousand rupees for the entire degree, right? Okay, so compare that with, people putting $1 crore or something like that into a bachelor's degree in the rest of the world, right? That's the kind of economic difference that exists. And if we can find a way to think differently, to provide world-class teaching, world-class research experiences, world-class work experiences, we can really demonstrate Advantage India in a manner that would make Dr. Abdul Kalam proud, in a manner that would shake up the global educational ecosystem, and hopefully shake it up in a very constructive, positive way. But it would also give Indians an opportunity to interact with the best and the brightest, and to make an impact, and to draw the world's students and faculty to our shores, and give us a chance to demonstrate what we're capable of. So on that positive note, let me sort of thank the organizers for inviting me, giving me a chance to interact with all of you, and to continue the good work as we explore how to take India forward in multifaceted ways. Thank you very much.